Hello and welcome to Health and Wellness, your guide to the integrated personal and financial retirement journey for physicians. I'm your host, Michael Swartz, Certified Financial Planner and Master Certified Physician Development Coach. Well, welcome back to the Health and Wellness Podcast. We have Michele Knox back again. Michele, thank you for joining us here for the second half of our two-part conversation.
Pleasure. Great to see you.
Excellent. So last time we talked a lot about your personal retirement journey and the transition from practice into retirement. And today, I think we're going to spend a little bit more of our time talking about the financial retirement journey and specifically the benefits of financial planning for physicians.
Sure.
Wonderful. And so why don't you start us out here? Where should we start this conversation as far as retirement planning for physicians?
Yeah. Well, I think where this really all began for me was the career choice that I made was to work with a very large medical group. I was a salaried physician with wonderful defined benefits, including retirement plans. And through my years, I sort of assumed that everything would work out and be okay. I got divorced, though, what I would call mid-career. And I then had an awful lot of financial questions. In my first marriage, there was an accountant, somebody did our taxes, gave us some financial advice. And when I became single, and even working through the divorce process in terms of, was it the right move for me to keep the house that the kids had grown up in that I was trying to keep? I mean, could I afford that? Lots of questions. I got a financial planner. And that was probably the best move that I ever made in terms of getting a better understanding of my finances. What did my future look like? And was this all going to work out? And fortunately, when we went through everything, I was in the place where I can sort of still remember the financial advisor saying, "You're going to be fine." That was very reassuring, looking through and understanding the numbers and knowing that everything was going to be fine. And then I remarried a wonderful man who had spent most of his career in technology, but also had an MBA in finance. And it was actually sort of a whole eye-opening experience about finances in general. Because I think physicians, we don't really, most of us, understand a lot of it. We don't really know when is enough. We don't really understand what's the cost of putting through kids through college in perspective with your entire net worth.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things out there which are pretty daunting. And my tech finance husband was very comfortable with money and just the whole outlook of what's coming in, what's going out, taxes. I don't know of any physician colleagues who did their own taxes, and I'm not necessarily recommending that by any stretch. I wouldn't do them. But here's an engineer who's been doing his own taxes. And in retirement, he did a few years of volunteer tax prep with a lot of training through AARP. So very comfortable with all of those pieces. And, I now have a much better sense of finance, financial planning, taxes, where does the money go? And if I didn't have him, I certainly would still be working with an advisor to understand all these things. But that really brought a lot of peace of mind to know that we had a plan, we were set, and we were confident, and also spent the time talking through some of the what ifs. If the market changes drastically, what would happen? If I stopped working early, what would happen? If one of us, the income stream disappeared for some reason, what would happen? And that made it also much easier for me in that as I approached retirement, I ended up stopping work earlier and retiring with disability because of arthritis in my hands. Um, the other piece that I learned from that process, I'd be remiss if I didn't say, disability insurance is expensive for physicians. But to have a disability policy that's occupation specific, that if I was an ophthalmologist, um, that was what my disability policy was all about. If I could no longer be an ophthalmologist and stay employed in that way, then that option was available for me to apply for disability, which is what I've done. Um, so I really think that understanding the finance piece to know where are you, where are you going, how are you going to get there, if some curveballs come along, what's it going to be like, that the value of having a financial plan and a trusted advisor just it just makes it easier to sleep at night.
Excellent. Excellent. So three quick pieces to talk about there. The first being the disability piece. So for many of the listeners out there who maybe don't live in that insurance world, in fact, we don't anymore at our firm. We are fee only, and so we have no commissionable products, including disability insurance. However, we do still recommend it. So we don't even get paid on it, and we recommend that every single client get it unless they can self-insure. Right. And there's a mathematical equation to say you no longer need it. But you touched specifically on the ophthalmologist piece, which to give everyone just that empowering vernacular, it is an own occupation policy rather than an any occupation policy. And so that own occupation says I am formally trained in a very specific set of skills. And so if I can no longer perform my own occupation, I can collect this disability insurance benefit. Whereas the any occupation piece would be I can't do any form of gainful employment and therefore I can collect the disability. And so for you specifically to have that own occupation style policy was extremely valuable.
Correct, correct. I loved what I did as an ophthalmologist and the other roles that I had in my medical group and in sort of leadership and administration. Um, the option was not really available to be a full-time administrative
Yes.
person. So if I was not able to be an ophthalmologist, then there was a reckoning. And without that disability policy, that would definitely have been one of those big curveballs. Like, okay, are we moving to a lower cost of living place and doing things very differently and less travel and all those sorts of things? Um, as opposed to having that own occupation disability policy that if I can't be an ophthalmologist, then I can't apply for this benefit, which my husband reminded me I paid a lot of money into that over
Yes.
25 plus years working. Um, and it does get expensive as you get older. Um, but carrying enough disability insurance to fill in what the gap would be income wise, um, absolutely, absolutely critical.
Yeah, and so I'll go one step further as a sub point A here on our first, any versus own occupation and disability policy piece. As a sub point of that, being forced to rely on your retirement assets sooner
Mm-hmm.
almost double charges the accounts. And so not only does this disability insurance policy allow you to bridge the gap between retirement and distributing from your retirement accounts, so you're not stressing the accounts with distributions, you're also allowing them more time to grow. And so when
Correct.
we retire early from a career in medicine, for example, we have to take distributions sooner, which also prevents those distributions from growing longer. And so it really is a exponential change in that distribution planning that you talked about. So to have that offset by a disability insurance policy is extremely valuable. I completely support that. And I would provide my next thought here. A lot of folks, especially in medicine, have been focused on the broad range of educational and ongoing credentialing requirements, and they have to remain solely focused on their career and may not have as much familiarity with the financial planning world. And so, as an opportunity to educate, there's a broad range of financial professionals. There are commissionable agents who sell insurance products, which I mentioned, we are not. Then there's financial advisors who typically collect an investment advisory fee for accounts, managing investment accounts. They may offer some additional tax advice, but then there's this third realm, and this is where our firm has been built, is in the fee only comprehensive financial planning space, where in the office, not only are we filing taxes, we can actually offer tax advice. We do provide investment management, and we can provide recommendations on these insurance pieces. Now, we don't place the insurance. We have an outside company that we delegate all of our client placement to. But in your experience, a lot of younger physicians are getting talked into buying a disability insurance policy by an insurance salesman or a life insurance policy. And a lot of wealthy physicians are being targeted by investment advisors to collect assets and manage them well. But then to have access to, a tax planning, investment planning, cash flow planning, retirement planning, all in wealth-based service. Just a little bit of education there for the listeners. And for you to have that in-house with your husband who understands finances so well, I mean, what was that like as far as you mentioned having that alleviation of concern to have those numbers run and say you're going to be fine? How much freedom did that provide you to remain focused on what mattered to you?
Oh, total freedom to focus on what mattered to me. Particularly going back to the time of my divorce. Money is a big part of all
Life.
the change, question, turmoil that is there, and sort of not knowing what the future holds financially is it's just not a great place to be.
Man,
And then understanding it and being able to know, well, if I do this or that, there's consequences to certain things. But it really did change my view of where I needed to spend my time and energy. And it was not worrying about money, which is a wonderful position to be in. I mean, I am very grateful for having a wonderful career and feeling like I was well compensated for the work that I did. And I think the other piece that I sort of see and hear in colleagues is really not understanding, in medicine that we really, really are very fortunate financially. Yes, everybody can have some unique challenges, and I'm sure there are physicians out there who are struggling for a variety of reasons. So it's not a carte blanche that everything is going to be perfect in the world. But by and large, you if you know that you are on a good plan with finances, then it is very freeing to be able to do the things that you want to spend your focus and energies on, whether that be putting more hours into patient care or traveling more or supporting kids through college and potentially grad school and things like that. It's just very stressful if you don't know where you stand.
absolutely. And I might maybe prompt with a thought too here. It sounds like you found someone that you can trust, and
Mm-hmm.
then you operate under that trust, which is quite freeing. And again, I want to fall back on this that, there are good insurance sales representatives who are placing just the right insurance that you need, but the incentives
Yeah.
in their contract creates a conflict of interest. The more insurance you place with them, the more they get paid, simply put. Same thing with investment advisors. The more money they manage, the more they get paid. And so there may be a little bit of what matters the most to you might not be in perfect alignment with what matters to your planner. And that's where finding someone who can remove as many of the conflicts of interest as possible and then sit down with you, maybe with that coaching mindset to say, money's a tool here. And first and foremost, it's going to put you in a peace of mind. It's going to provide that peace of mind for you. And then beyond that, once that foundation of peace of mind exists, what are our goals? What are our dreams? What are those fulfilling experiences in life that our money can be used for as a tool to provide for us? And I'm curious, as you enter a very fulfilling retirement, it sounds like through volunteering, what are some of those experiences that you're looking forward to that are out in front of you that your money is going to purchase for you?
Well, one of the big things that we did very early in retirement, we had thought for a number of years that we would relocate. And actually, my first year when I was on leave of absence, not working, but having not formally separated from the medical group, we were focused on a different geographical area and potentially relocating. We spent a couple of weeks at a time there, really sort of trying to decide, is this a place that we wanted to live? What were the houses like? All that sort of stuff. We decided to not relocate, and then thought that we might do some things to our home to make it more for our sort of next chapter in life. Um, and then sort of took another look around. Long story short, we ended up moving 10 miles away. And we have a lovely house that is new, so hopefully needs less maintenance and those kinds of things in retirement. It has incredible views, which was something that my husband had always really, really wanted. I hadn't lived in a view home, and now that I'm in one, it's a beautiful thing. And moving and shoring up taxes on capital gains and an
Mm.
increase on a house that had been held for a long time. I mean, that was a big thing. But being able to understand, could we handle that? And how is that going to impact our sort of financial future? Um, Recognizing that short of one of us dying in our previous home, those taxes were going to come due sometime anyway. So now we've shored them up. And if we move again in 20 years, when all we can handle is a 1,200 square foot condo with somebody taking care of a lot of stuff, well, that tax bill at that time won't be as big. So being able to look at something like that and say, this in our situation makes sense for us, without the understanding of our finances, then I think it would have been very constraining. And perhaps we wouldn't have done things out of the fear of a tax bill or this and that and the other related to where we live, which is so much part of our life. Particularly now, we don't leave the house as much to go to work. So that's one piece. Being able to travel and really sort of think about, well, what do we want? Um, at some point in time, as our family expands, my daughter's engaged, so there's a future son-in-law. Maybe there's grandkids at some point. Do we travel and do we gather the family, and do we do that as a gift, or is that the financial obligation of the kids if they want to come? Almost become choices if you're in a good place financially. And that is just really kind of a wonderful way to be. Being able to volunteer rather than needing income from sort of that side of retirement is very freeing. And it really all is about understanding sort of, where are we?
Yep.
What does the world look like? What are the most likely things that are going to happen to us financially in retirement? And being comfortable with those answers.
And it sounds like along the way, being able to make informed decisions where you mentioned the tax piece on the sale of the home, the long-term capital gains. There is an exemption on that. I'm sure you dove into the math on it and said, based on the outcomes, based on what the math will be, here's the only decision we need to make. And you mentioned freeing a couple times. And what a gift it is when you're working with, a financial professional or a husband who's got, very, very affluent in the skill in the trade. It very much simplifies the decisions. It doesn't make them maybe any less emotionally significant, but it allows you to focus on that rather
Right.
than maybe a bit of that
Yeah.
inhibiting,
Yeah.
overwhelming
And I mean,
sense.
don't get me wrong, we still look at airfares and agonize over which airline and which route and how much does this flight versus that flight cost. I mean, you're going to sit up towards the front of the plane or not. I mean, we still agonize over those kinds of decisions, I think, as much as anybody else does. Because I think if you take care of the small pieces, then the big pieces will take care of themselves. There's a little bit of that sort of philosophy. And we like to save money just like everybody else,
Yep.
all those expressions of the dollar saved is a dollar earned. I mean, whichever sort of piece you want to come to. So I'm not meaning to say that, we just are carte blanche and can do anything. We still absolutely do think about all the financial sort of consequences of our decisions, but we do it with much more ease and grace,
Yes.
knowing where we stand.
Well, and the value of having a professional relationship, again, with someone that you can trust who shows up with a limited conflict of interest, like a husband would,
Yeah.
it really does. It shows up so much more and impacts so many other domains of life that there really probably isn't any way to put a financial value on that. It's an emotional experiential value. Now you add the coaching piece onto it, which we raved about in our first conversation. This really can be a massive enabler and empowerer for that transition into retirement to have the clarity on the finances to say, yep, with everything that you guys have in place, you're going to be great. In fact, we're going to encourage you to reclaim that agency and write these stories about having the home with a view. We're not leaving home as much in retirement. I love that you pointed that out.
Yeah.
We're here 7 days a week, unless we choose not to be. And you
Yeah.
can make a life filled with experiences that you've worked so hard for. You've made sacrifices for over the entire arc of your career. That this is the exclamation point. This is the crescendo into retirement. It's not terminal. It's a celebration. And it sounds like you're out there investing the money in the experiences and the lifestyle to really celebrate everything that you've worked so hard for.
Right. And I would also say, Michael, that we have still in the back of our mind, um, if something completely unexpected and it's very significant happened. I mean, we're talking today as these fires are raging in Southern Cal, and we know people who are close to there, and we live in earthquake country on the West Coast. There's any number of natural disasters that could happen. I mean, if we lost our home, we've had the conversation, not too deep into it, but okay, well, what would we do? And we know that we could move to another place where the cost of living is much less. And that was part of, as we were thinking about relocating, I mean, different places had different price tags to them. But, knowing that if we had to change our lifestyle, change where we live, change how we live, because something significant happened financially, we also know that we could do that.
Hmm.
And our kids are launched, so that's a other wonderful position to be in at this time of life. um, we can make choices about when we might um, you know help with certain things,
Sure.
um, but not to the point where we're influencing or meddling or shaping their lives in some way. Don't want to do that. um, but just recognizing here's where we are, the what ifs, if they happen to us, what would we do, and we would still be okay.
Absolutely. And I love that you pointed out because I think there's a really strong position to shine the light on here. Not only are we planning for the what ifs for what goes wrong. I think that's where most people start. What if there's a natural disaster? What if we have a disability? What if, right? We have those insurances in place to protect the what ifs, but the negatives. And the
Mm-hmm.
real beauty of a really good coach, a really good financial
Mm-hmm.
planner is going to say too, but what if things go really well? And you guys
Mm-hmm.
were able to make some decisions based on, hey, we're assuming that what if things go well, we can build this retirement home and make these decisions to travel and live out the timeline of what if goes well, so long as it does. And then the freedom to do that because you've got these contingencies in place. You went through the what ifs and the relocation conversations. Again, not in depth, but addressed it. So if life, for whatever reason, takes that change in trajectory, we've already got the oxygen bag dropping down from the ceiling. It's already right there in front of us. We don't worry about the cabin depressurization. We've run
Right.
through the drill. And what a value has that provided to you in the emotional freedom to really embrace this?
Yeah, I mean, it's just huge that you can't put a price on that.
Yeah. And I think um, that's a phenomenal place to land, Michelle, is to say that beautiful, wonderful retirement that you've been dreaming about, it may not take the path that you have planned out in front of you, but the balance between rigidity and adaptability of forecasting and also just navigating the weather of the day,
Yeah,
it kind of comes into this collection of positivity, but there's a lot of agency that can be reclaimed along that path. And in doing so, find yourself in a wonderful position as you transition into retirement.
indeed.
Excellent. Well, I do genuinely appreciate our conversation today, Michelle. Any closing words then for the financial piece?
Uh, have a plan, have confidence in it, and understand that there can be curveballs and be ready for those. And just being able to take it all in stride. I think that retirement is a wonderful place to be with a financial plan in place.
Excellent. Well, I'm extremely happy to hear that. Michelle, thank you again for joining us here on the Health and Wellness podcast, and take care.
Bye now.
Bye. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Health and Wellness Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Michael Swartz, Certified Financial Planner and Master Certified Physician Development Coach. If you're looking for additional resources for integrated physician retirement planning, please visit healthandwellness.com. We'll see you in the next episode.